You know how powerful it is when someone shares their personal story, about the moments that have shaped who they are today. They become way more relatable, and it builds connection between the two of you. But when I ask people to share their own stories, they often freeze. I don't have any stories, they say, or no one wants to hear my stories. Well, if that sounds like you, then you are in the right place. Welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and today I'm joined by personal storytelling coach Katie Richardson. She's here to share her vital framework, a simple yet powerful tool to help you uncover and share your personal stories in a way that truly resonates. So, whether you are a leader, entrepreneur, or someone who just wants to own your own narrative, Katie's approach will give you the confidence to turn your experiences into meaningful, impactful stories. I hope your 2024 has been a remarkable year and you're settling in and enjoying your holidays with friends and family. This past year, I've been doing something with a couple of friends and colleagues that I am so excited to share with you because you will get a chance to take advantage of it. Now, if you've been listening to this show a long time, you know I have spent the last 20 years perfecting my story cycle system. In fact, I even wrote a textbook about it called Brand Bewitchery, How to Wield the Story Cycle System to Craft Spellbinding Stories for Your Brand. And I've used the story cycle system to have some really amazing impact with some incredible companies. Adelante Healthcare, one of the very first brands that used the story cycle system, grew by 600%. And that's right, 600%. Avin Satay-Tafoya, who was the CEO at the time and went through our process together, credits the Business of Story cycle system to help them clarify their story, to create that impact that they're trying to make out there in the world. So I've taken all of that, and I was working with a friend of mine, Sean Schroeder, up in Sacramento, and this is all of 2016. We took his digital agency and the SaaS platform they had created called the Mira Experience Platform through the story cycle system. In fact, when we did it, he goes, Park, we've been trying to rebrand ourselves or refine our brand for like a year, and we've had no luck. So we hope you can do it, but we doubt you can pull it off. Well, Sean and I worked tirelessly. We went through the 10-step process, and we did indeed find that perfect brand story for both his digital agency, Blue River, and the Mira Experience Platform. Well, it was so successful, and they had such a great product and service that they ended up selling their company to, I believe it was a Canadian company. Sean then was using the story cycle system with some of his friends to help them get dialed in. He called me just over a year ago and said, you know what? We should really make this an AI agent, an app that people could use. And so we have spent 2024 pulling that together, and we're in the final development stage right now. And in early January next year, we will have it for you to try out, to test. And in fact, I'm looking for some folks to come on board and work in a small group. I'm going to say 10 to 15 people total for this launch. And you will be able to use the app and have me to be able to bounce the findings off of. Now, here's the deal. It all comes down to taking my 2 decades, my 20 years of experience crafting, building, and refining the story cycle system, implementing it in companies that often takes 2 to 3 to 4 months to do through the discovery and research. And we have boiled that down to it now taking less than 1 hour for you to get the powerful narrative findings that you will need to craft your brand story. And then we take it even further than that. We help you create personas for each of your audiences. It will even write ads for you, video scripts. I mean, you name it. It's really quite remarkable. So anyways, if you are interested in helping us kind of test this product out in early January, you will take it, the online app, and it'll take you all of an hour to do it. Then bounce your findings off of me, and we we will then refine your brand story together. And I promise you, within 2 hours, you will have achieved everything that's taken me 20 years to create, and which typically takes brands 4 to 6 to 8 months to pull off. You can do it in 2 hours. I know it sounds way too good to be true, but if you're interested, send me a note to park@businessofstory.com. I will put together a waiting list, and then we will determine who will participate in that first round. And I'm going to tell you right now, it won't be for free. You've got to have some skin in the game. You have to have some investment in it. So we will charge $500. It'll be $250 to take the app, go through it to refine your brand story, and then another $250 for me working with you in a 1 to 2 hour session tops to make the absolute refinements to that story. I mean, how can you lose? So if you want to be a part of that, then shoot me your note. It's going to be more of a first come, first serve basis. We're looking at 10 to 15 people tops for this first trial period. And by the way, if it doesn't work for you, if you don't feel like you got complete value out of it, then I will give you your $500 back. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that, right? So I hope you'll join me because, my whole goal in all the work that I always do is about helping you excel through the stories you tell. Now, we're going to use the applied science of AI to make this happen, to lead you to the bewitchery of a powerful, compelling, clear brand story. So shoot me a note, park@businessofstory.com. You see, I love seeing both personal and professional stories come together and seeing how they can wow audiences. Your audiences being colleagues, customers, stakeholders, family, friends, you name it. And that's why I'm fascinated about Katie's vital framework that provides a different way to view your internal and external stories. And she came by it out of her own challenges and problems of running her own business from startup to global powerhouse. It underscores the basic premise of all storytelling, and that is no conflict, no story.
And so when we exited the company and I really felt called to be a business coach, I did not feel qualified. Let me be very clear about that. I did not feel qualified to tell anybody what to do in my business. And yet I couldn't deny the fact that I was really being pulled in that direction. And so I took it on and I shifted into business coaching. And I took everything that I learned and the pain that I experienced, and I said, how can I help somebody be ultra successful and build a significant business, but do it in a way where it lights you up? Do it in a way where it actually grows and facilitates and improves your business, your home relationships, right? Whether that's with your spouse or your business partner or your kids, why do they have to be in competition? Can't we do it in a way where when one grows, they all grow? And that became my pursuit. And honestly, that's the foundation of the Vital Framework.
Katie Richardson is on a mission to create powerful leaders. With a background in design, Katie built a multi-million-dollar international company with distribution in 2,000 stores in the U.S. and 26 countries. Her work has been featured on Ellen DeGeneres, The Today Show, and Rachel Ray. She also has been featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. Today, as an executive business coach, Katie teaches founders and CEOs the mindsets, skill sets, and tool sets you need to operate powerfully in business and in life so that you can live with purpose and do what you were born to do. So please welcome to the Business of Story, Katie Richardson. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the Business of Story.
Park, great to be here. I'm excited to be on the show.
In almost 500 episodes, I have yet to have anyone join us from Puerto Rico. So welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here. The sun is shining.
How did you end up in Puerto Rico? You don't look Puerto Rican to me.
I am not. No. I've been an entrepreneur since about 2008. And, we always had this dream of independence and freedom, both financial independence and time independence, and just being able to live life as we want. We have 4 kids. And 3 years ago, it was the beginning of December. Winter was about to come. And I was like, you know what? I'm ready to move away from the Pacific Northwest and get some more sunshine. And so within 2 weeks, we were all on a plane and we moved to Puerto Rico and have not looked back.
Where were you in the Pacific Northwest?
In Vancouver, Washington, which just is on the other
Mhm.
side of the river from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, I grew up in the Seattle area, so
Okay.
know that area well. And I kind of did the same thing, but instead of going to Puerto Rico, I ended up in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Love
know,
it.
I know, you can only take so much of those dark, gloomy days in the Pacific Northwest, and you got to get out and get some sun.
Yeah. It's gorgeous there, but after about 18 years of it, it was starting to wear on all of us. So it was just time for a change.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your first startup and how did it come to be? Because it absolutely took off like crazy.
It did. So my background is in product design, and I developed this ability to take an idea and a concept that maybe lives on your head or you can sketch out onto a piece of paper and develop the ability to understand how to manufacture and distribute that. And in 2008, we were developing the idea. And in 2010, we actually launched it as a brand and a product. And like you said, it took off into 2,000 stores in the US with distribution in 26 different countries. And the company's called Pudge, P-U-J. And I am somebody who is just from a really young age, Park, I have been radically curious about the world, how things work, how things go together. And the idea of taking something that my mind conceives of and being able to literally package that up and ship that all over the world, like that was just fascinating to me. And so that curiosity is what drove me to build a product and a company. What's interesting is in trying to think what year it was, 2015, 2016, my husband and I were on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine, and the article was called The Accidental Entrepreneur, and it was my story. I never really was out there trying to build a company. That might sound a little crazy, but my objective was much greater. And it was in a lot of ways where we started in Puerto Rico. It's kind of the fulfillment of that journey that I was on. I'm madly in love with my husband. I just want to spend as much time as possible with him. And we have 4 beautiful children who homeschool. And, when we started our company, they were really, really young. And it just felt like we weren't able to live the life that we wanted. And so from that early stage, I was on a mission to figure out how can we, as a family, as an entrepreneur, how can we live the life that we want? And I think that's honestly the dream of so many entrepreneurs. We step into the unknown and we pursue a life that isn't easy. And there's a reason for that because the possibility of the reward on the other side of that is so great that we just can't live our life in regret of never trying to go for it.
Mhm. What was the product you launched?
It's an infant bathtub that hangs in stores flat and then it folds into this like cushiony, soft, warm bucket seat that fits in your bathroom sink. So it cradles the baby really well. It doesn't absorb water, but it's really soft and squishy. So, you know, when we launched it, like I mentioned, it exploded. But what people don't
Mhm.
know is the year prior, I launched it and it didn't explode. In fact, nobody placed an order. I'd gone to the trade show in New York. I was pregnant with our third baby, and it was just like everything was on the line. We'd been living on food storage. I was grinding wheat to make bread to feed the family. And it was just like, this is my moment. And I came home empty handed. It was devastating. And in a moment where I was ready to give up on the dream, my husband said, "You didn't fail." And I was like, "What do you mean? No, this failed. Like, we've been trying to pursue this for 2 years and nobody bought it." And he said, "They were asking you questions and we just didn't have the answer to those questions. So we need to answer all of those questions and they'll all buy this product. Answer those questions and we'll be shipping this all over the world." So even though everything in my reality, Park, was counter to that, I had a lot of evidence that I was a failure, that nobody wanted this. When
Mhm.
my husband said that, it was like my body was on fire. And I remember in that moment looking into the future, just like 12 months into the future, and looking back at that moment. And I said, if I give up now, is the Katie of 12 months from now going to be dying with curiosity of what would have happened if I didn't give up? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, she's going to be kicking herself. And I was like, okay, I can't give up then. And so it was eliminating that potential regret. It's what motivated me to keep going.
What was the inspiration behind this product? Your own, use as a mother
Oh,
and with your
yeah.
first kids trying to figure out how to wash these things?
Yes. I mean, you mentioned that your kids are out of the house, but go back to that time when your kids are
Mm-hmm.
young. Listen, the number of baths that you have to give a baby, it's ridiculous. Sometimes it's like multiple times a day because they'll have diaper blowouts. And bath time was just really cumbersome. And because the previous bathtubs that I was using didn't cradle my baby, the baby would cry and get all red and they're slippery and wet. And it just was this traumatic experience, as extreme as that sounds. And my kids had really dry skin. My pediatrician was like, you need to be bathing them every day. I'm like, every day? Do you realize what an ordeal this is? And so what I did is I said, okay, if I had my ideal product, ideal solution, what might that be? And this is kind of my design process. So I start to dream and imagine kind of the features or the benefits of the ideal solution. And it would hang and store flat. It would be easy to set up. It would be easy to take down. I wouldn't have to put it in the dryer to dry it. And it would be mold and mildew free, right? I make this list and then I grab my pencil and I start drawing ideas like what does that potentially look like? And that's kind of the genesis of the whole
I would
idea.
love to have seen the prototype and the use of the prototype. You must have had to have gone through several designs
Oh,
before
yeah.
you found one that actually worked for your own kid.
Yeah, totally. In fact, some of the initial prototypes, if you can imagine, they had like big bolts on them and it's like, what is a bathtub? But what the product ended up doing is we figured out how to embed a neodymium magnet into foam.
Now,
Into
wait a
a
minute. A neodymium magnet?
Yes.
What's that?
Yes. It's a rare earth magnet. And they're really strong. And because I wanted this to be something that I could set up with an infant in my arms, I needed to be able to set it up with one hand. And
Mm-hmm.
we had developed a solution that took two hands to set it up. And we decided that's not enough. And this needs to be set up with an infant in your arms. Because who's holding the baby if you're the one setting up the bathtub? So we pushed ourselves, and I had designed a piece of furniture that used neodymium magnets, but that was like wood and metal. This was a foam bathtub. And for reference, closed cell EVA foam, it's like the midsole of your shoe. It's soft, it's squishy, it's warm to the touch, but it doesn't absorb water, so you don't get the mold and the mildew. And so we figured out that that was the product that we wanted to use, the material that we wanted to use, but we had to figure out how to embed magnets in it, and we figured it out. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't do it right, they'll rip out of the foam. We figured that out, and once we kind of finalized that design, that's when we knew we had a game changer. And that's when we took it back to the trade shows.
And did you go to school and study product design, or did it just
I
come to
did.
you naturally?
I did. Brigham Young University. I received a scholarship from General Motors as a young designer. Which was the reason I laughed is like, I had no idea that that was going to be my journey. My other siblings were more academic than I was, and I was just this really curious child. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
went to college, it was, well, that's just what you do. And I was going to kind of get by. And then I found industrial design and I was like, wait, what? I can like draw and sketch and make things out of wood and metal and the university's going to give me a diploma for that? Like, are you kidding me? I was over the moon.
You were
And I
like a
got to
kid in a
play.
play
And
shop.
yes, I got to play
Yeah.
and have fun. And that led to me really getting a lot of attention as a young design student. So I wasn't trying to like be somebody in design. I was just having fun. And honestly, like that's been a theme throughout my entrepreneurial journey is like, how can we make this fun and exciting?
And then you got attention from a lot of things. You had already mentioned about being on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine, but you were also Ellen DeGeneres Show, the Rachel Ray Show, the Today Show. Did you have a great PR firm behind you landing you all this, or did they just hear your story?
I'm not going to say PR wasn't a part of the strategy. It absolutely was. But to reference the whole purpose of this podcast, I understood the story that I was trying to tell people. And when we designed the product, we had really specific values that we were infusing into that design in order to tell the story. And because of kind of the thoughtfulness and the intention that went into the design of the product, it started to kind of take on a life of its own, and it got a lot of attention for the brand and the products for
Mhm.
those reasons.
I think you would do our listeners a huge favor is like in under 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Can you share your story? Say there's an investor sitting across from you or a producer for Oprah sitting across from you. They're going to give you 30 seconds to share your story. What is it?
For Pudge. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm feeling all this pressure all of a sudden, Park. I wasn't feeling pressure. Now I'm feeling all this pressure.
That's my job.
The purpose of Pudge is to simplify parenthood, and we do that in 4 ways. Through the design, simplicity of design, by focusing on family, giving our clients and customers an experience of now and wow. And I'm totally forgetting the fourth. Family. Family is one of the values. And so an example of that is when we design a toddler towel, I want this to give kids independence and freedom. Maybe that was the value that I missed. Independence and freedom. And so I've
That's
designed a
okay.
towel that a 2-year-old can very easily slip their arms into these little wings and put the hood on, and they're immediately covered. And that gives them the independence and freedom that they want so that they can stay warm. And those are just some examples of now and wow. Another example is on our website, we have an application for a company who might potentially want to be a wholesale partner. And as soon as they submit that application, my global sales director gets a notification. He picks up the phone, and turns out the guy who was in buy mode suddenly has my head of sales on the phone. And so that's an example of like really wowing our vendors and really, really being present with them.
Yeah. So you took this from a year to a struggle, not getting there, not knowing the answers to great questions. And your husband says, well, Katie, go figure it out, find the answers, get back to them. And they did start buying. You started growing this thing internationally. So I would imagine you were spending a lot of time on jets flying around, making this happen while you were raising this young family of yours.
I mean, it was on jets, but I was in the back row in economy.
Yeah, yeah.
And like
But you were away from the kids.
going to cities where I knew a friend, and I would like reach out to a friend of a friend, like, hey, I know Aaron, and you're friends with him, and he said you live in Manhattan. Can I sleep on your couch? Like, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about what you were experiencing personally. You were having this professional success, but how was it hitting you on a personal level?
I actually experienced a lot of doubt and resistance as things started to take off, because for years it didn't take off, and then it did. And it was weird because you have this vision and this hope and this dream of someday we're going to make millions of dollars. And the millions started to come in, and it was destroying me, Park, because by 10 a.m., Mean Mommy was showing up, and I was not being the present, loving mother that I always wanted to be. And I had zero patience for my kids. And all of a sudden they went from being the most important person in the world to I have manufacturers, distributors, retailers, press and media, and those people are really important, and you're not all of a sudden. And it was really hard for me to navigate. So I was in this moment where my dreams were coming true, but it didn't look the way that I thought. And I kind of in my mind, I would walk that path forward a little bit more, and it was riddled with regret because I saw the potential division that was starting to happen in my marriage. There was so much tension in my marriage. There was a division between me and my kids because I didn't have time for them. I wasn't taking care of myself physically or spiritually. And I was like, wow. So the path to a successful business is also a path to huge destruction on everything that matters to me. And it felt like what I wanted, AKA a successful business and a successful family and home life, were completely incompatible. And it terrified me. So there were days, Park, where I was just in this internal wrestle. I was continuing to grow the business, I was continuing to walk that path, but I knew something has to change because this is not sustainable. And if I get 3, 5, 10 years into the future and my life has fallen apart, I don't care how much money I've made. It's not worth it. So I had to figure something out.
And then you had someone show up and say, we want to buy Pudge. So that must have really changed your trajectory quite a bit.
It did. I mean, what was interesting is that moment was something where we weren't actually planning on selling it right then. We were just looking for a strategic partner to help us go to the next level. And someone said, I love it. I just want more of it. And so very unexpectedly, we had an offer in our lap and we had to make a decision. And even though we hadn't planned on selling it then, we made a decision that we were ready to move into a different direction in a different industry, and we wanted to take the offer. So we did.
Mm-hmm. And did you have a number of different SKUs and a number of different products in Pudge? Am I saying that right? P-U-J, Pudge? What's that stand for? Where'd that name come from?
Well, I wanted something that I could trademark and that I could own the .com. We were able to buy PUJ.com. And honestly, the name is a reference to your baby or your Pudge. So it's not about the products, it's about your child and your relationship with your child. And the products just facilitate that relationship.
Yeah, I've never heard that child referred to as a Pudge.
Well, a happy, healthy baby is a pudgy baby, right?
Right,
so Pudge
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
back to that original question, did you have more than just the bathtub, the bathing device then?
Yeah.
How many products did you have in it?
We'd been in business for over 8 years, and what was cool is we started to develop a relationship with the major retailers with the bathtub, and they could then, from their data, they could see where there were gaps in the market and where there were opportunities, and they would come to us and say, hey, will you make this? And what about that? And it was great because we could take the values and the brand and the company and kind of the hero product, and then very quickly we could infuse more products given what the market wanted.
Yeah.
So we developed about 20 different products.
20. So isn't it interesting the contradiction between what you were doing with the value of the company and so forth and making that time with your child happier, healthier, safer and all that to create that bond, and yet you as an entrepreneur were fighting against that. I mean, you were saying 100%. That your kids came second, and it's not a mean streak in you. It's just an entrepreneurial streak that you can't really have it all in this world. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing today, helping people. And I'd love to get into your vital framework and how what you learned in this process, and how are you teaching people now to keep control and reins in their life?
You know, Pudge taught me a lot of things. And if you just give everything to your business, it will take everything and more. And so when we exited the company and I really felt called to be a business coach, I did not feel qualified. Let me be very clear about that. I did not feel qualified to tell anybody what to do in their business. And yet I couldn't deny the fact that I was really being pulled in that direction. And so I took it on and I shifted into business coaching. And I took everything that I learned and the pain that I experienced, and I said, how can I help somebody be ultra successful and build a significant business, but do it in a way where it lights you up? Do it in a way where it actually grows and facilitates and improves your business, your home relationships, right? Whether that's with your spouse or your business partner or your kids, like, why do they have to be in competition? Can't we do it in a way where when one grows, they all grow? And that became my pursuit. And honestly, that's the foundation of the Vital Framework. And there's 5 pieces to the Vital Framework. So if you'd like, we can hop into that so you can kind of get a sense for what that is.
I would love that. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first piece is the vision system. You have to, let me tell you a little story. I was interviewing somebody who I asked her, how'd you get started in your industry? And she said, funnily enough, I used to be a safari tour guide. And I was like, what? And then she ended up telling me this really interesting little fact, which is when you're walking in the safari, pretty soon you will be walking in circles. Why? Because we all have a dominant foot and it's really flat. And that dominant foot steps a little bit further than the less dominant foot, and you're walking in circles. And she said, but there's a way out of it. And that is, you have to have a point on the horizon that you're looking at. And the vision system is that point on the horizon. If you don't have this point on the horizon, before you know it, you are walking in circles. And as entrepreneurs, as founders, as owners, as CEOs, that is your job. to know what that point on the horizon is and to lead your team in that direction. So that's what the vision system does. The second
And
piece.
real quick, can that point on the horizon be both professional, that business pursuit point, as well as I imagine you've got to bring in the personal side of it, the family side
100%.
of it. So it's one point that represents both the ins and outs of your life in business and family.
Yes, you're talking about the North Star, Park. It's a huge part of the vision system, and that North Star has to align for you personally. Otherwise, you're personally, internally in conflict with the business objectives, and that won't work. Yeah, 100%.
Can you give me an example of a North Star or through the vision system that maybe you are using or you've shared, you've helped someone to, give us, show it to us.
I can tell you how I
action.
discovered my North Star. So when Pudge really started to take off and I was finally experiencing some success, we were about a year into it and we'd done over $1 million, and the business was effectively being taken from me by some early stage investors. And I was really upset. And I was like, what the heck? And I'm like mad at God. And I'm in my mind, I'm saying to him, you encouraged me and inspired me to go in this direction, and now it's being taken from me. And in that moment, he taught me something really beautiful, which was, Katie, you thought this business was about the product and the brand, but it was about you. And this business is a vehicle for you to become the woman that I created you to be. And in that moment, I went from kind of clinging to my brand and my products to really actually optimally utilizing them. So that mission of using a business as a powerful vehicle to become who God created you to be is now my mission and my North Star as a coach.
Gotcha. Beautiful. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. What is step 2 in your vital framework?
It's the inspired path. There are 1,000 ways to that point on the horizon, but we need to strategize and outline the inspired path for you. And that includes understanding your values and why this business matters to you.
So give us an example of that. Maybe your life, or maybe someone you've helped say they wanted this, they thought the path was this direction, but we actually, in working together, realized it's this direction.
Yeah, I had a client who is a coach, and she was wanting to make $1 million a year. And some people are willing to do whatever is required, and that usually takes you in a path of great destruction. And she said, I want to do $1 million a year, and I only want to work 12 hours a week because I want to spend Fridays with my kids. I want to drop them off at the bus and pick them up. And that was really important to her. And I have another client who, he has a hard money lending company. He takes on investment and has a $100 million fund. And in his company, he really wanted to have a charitable component to his business, and he wanted to provide housing for moms who are single and have kids. And so that's been a huge part of his strategy. It includes this charitable component.
And by the way, did the woman achieve her goal of making $1 million a year in 12 hours a week? Or 12 hours a week?
It hasn't been easy, but yeah, she's done it.
She got there. And what is her offering?
Well, I don't work with her right now, so I don't know specifically. But she actually helps other women do similar to what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 3, we've got the North Star. You help them find the inspired path, heading in the right direction. What is 3?
3 is the team system. If you're going to get to that point on the horizon, you can't do it on your own. And in fact, if you try and do it on your own and you lone wolf it, it can potentially really destroy you. So you have to understand how to take your brand and your brand story and your products you're offering and like leverage a team to get that out there. And leading a team is not natural and intuitive for a lot of people. And so it's about understanding how to actually use your team. Too often we'll hire people and then we end up working for our team. Like, I'll take that and just hand that to me. And then we end up becoming the bottleneck of the whole business. And so the team system is about really understanding how to empower your team.
How big was your team at Pudge?
I mean, it wasn't huge. We had 20 plus team members. Yeah.
But that, I mean, 20 plus team members, even though it's not huge, it can take a lot of time and energy to
Oh,
be
yeah.
able to corral them and make them productive and keep them motivated and inspired and all that.
Yeah. Those were my full time employees. And of course, globally, I worked with a lot of distributors and manufacturers, contractors. So that's true.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What were some of the things you did with your team to be able to, you know, you could maintain your sanity as the CEO and really turn them loose and become really self-running teams that are accountable and productive?
Actually, as you were asking that, what came to mind was the end. We were in Q4 and we had had some losses that year. We'd put a lot of money into product development and the products weren't ready. And so we hadn't been able to recapture some of that. And and so I needed my team to kind of make up the difference. And I remember a team meeting where we talked where a lot of times when you have losses as the owner or the CEO, you kind of can carry that on your own and it feels scary to share that with the team. But we made a decision to share it with the team because we wanted their ideas on how we can make up the difference. And so we had a team meeting. We had everyone brainstorm, whether that was my warehouse, whether it was the people who were interfacing with retailers, and whether it was my Amazon guys. And we worked together. And what's so beautiful is we were able to make up the difference. So empowering your team with information and giving them the courage to be creative and share their ideas and not shooting down ideas for being dumb and then empowering them to go execute.
Yeah, and you as the leader, the CEO, have to have the courage and the gumption to be able to turn to them and say, it's not working right now. And
Right.
or I made a wrong decision or I miscalculated when we were going to go to market, so that you can have a bit of a mea culpa that builds that, authentic connection, that honesty. And I'm here because I need your help.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome. How
Yeah.
about number 4?
Align system. Because of all of the information that we carry as the owner, we can almost be at war with ourselves. And I referenced that with the early stages of my physical products company. It was like everything that I was doing to grow the business were in direct conflict to the personal things that mattered to me. And so I was constantly at war with myself. And when I was at work, I felt guilty that I wasn't home being present with my kids. And when I was with my kids, I felt guilty that I wasn't at the office leading the team. And the Align system is about really understanding how to settle that internal conflict so that you can be in alignment when you're at work, alignment when you're home, and you can take powerful action.
How do you do that? I imagine it's a pretty involved process to get someone to do that, but give our listeners one or two ideas of what they could do right now if they feel like they've got that imbalance and they want to align that, business side of them with the family side of them.
Yeah, I have a whole program that walks people through this, and people tell me when they go through it, they feel like they're drinking out of a fire hose.
Oh yeah.
So, like trying to simplify this, but the overall concept is this: when your actions are in conflict with what you want, you're at war with yourself. And so the key is to understand how to align your agency with your actions. And it can look as simple as this. Like, let's just say you're trying to be healthier and you had a tough day and you found yourself at the drive through and you're sitting in the car and you're eating french fries. And then you start beating yourself up because I've been so good for 2 weeks. And then today was rough. And I found myself at the fast food restaurant and now I'm eating french fries, and we can beat ourselves up. That beating of yourself up is this internal conflict that I'm talking about. And what you can do to immediately step out of that is say to yourself, today was rough and I didn't have as much discipline as I would like to someday have. And right now, I'm going to eat these french fries. And it's about aligning with your actions. And that might seem counterproductive, but it actually aligns you internally and it dissipates that resistance that an inner critic can bring.
Mm-hmm. Well, and entrepreneurs, I'm sure you experience this as well, are hard on themselves.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got a lot of ambition. We want to do a lot of things. We can't say, oh, my big corporation that, I'm employed at will take care of that. It is
Yeah.
all about us. And
Yeah.
so, we have a tendency of beating ourselves up sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that idea because I love French fries, but to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to treat myself today, or it's okay. I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to, later on today or tomorrow, start with the healthy stuff again. Give yourself a break.
See, this is what I said. I didn't say that it was okay. It was that I am choosing to do this right now. It's different.
Okay.
Because it's okay isn't true. It's not that's not true.
It's not okay to eat those French fries.
Whether or not it's okay is not even part of the consideration. Does that make sense? It's that
Keep going.
I am choosing to do this right now. And I hope that the Katie of tomorrow has the discipline to not be in this drive-through again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So it goes back to that alignment system, which is really all based on the values.
Yes.
It sounds like,
Yes.
what do you truly value?
Yes.
And how are you delivering on that? Because we can value something and really want it, but it can be really hard to attain.
Yes. And Park, this is frequently where I start with people. In fact, oftentimes my VIP clients, the first 90 days, we are solely focused on alignment because something's happening in their business or life that's pushing them into frantic energy. And when you take frantic action, you get a frantic outcome. And it's not the outcome that my entrepreneur wants. And so they're in this perpetual cycle of frantic action. And I have to pull them out of that frantic action so that we can better define that point on the horizon. We can work with the team because what happens is over those 90 days, I get them really aligned and they understand how to take powerful action. And from that place, we then go and we train and teach the team. And we support them in taking powerful action and we pull them out of this frantic state.
I like that term, frantic action, because again, from a personal development, leadership, CEO point of view, we are constantly putting out fires. If you're trying to do anything big in the world, the universe is going to punch you in the nose on occasion and say, all right, how badly do you really want this? And it does sometimes lead you into frantic energy that leads to frantic action, that leads to frantic outcomes that typically aren't in service to you or anyone around you.
Yep, 100%. Yeah.
So number 5, what's number 5 of the vital framework?
It's the leadership system. When I was growing my team, I had no idea how to lead. And in fact, it really terrified me. I was really good at taking action myself. When it came to leading others, that was really hard for me. And there were a lot of times when I would take responsibilities out of the hands of team members because I didn't know how to support them. I didn't know how to lead them. And leadership is learnable. And whether you are leading a team of 20 or 200, you can learn this. And one of the things specifically, I'll get a little tactical with you. I was actually just walking somebody through this. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a brand creator, I would highly suspect that you are a highly intelligent individual. And what happens with these highly intelligent individuals is you take in more information than most other people do. And as a result, what's blatantly obvious to you isn't even in the field of awareness for most other people. And I see this all the time. My CEOs are actually really struggling to communicate with their team for this reason, because it is so obvious to them. They're not going to be punitive and treat you like an idiot and explain what is so obvious. And so without realizing it, they're not communicating. And if you can just understand that this doesn't mean that you are greater in the eyes of God because you're more intelligent. It just means you're going to need to learn to explain yourself in a really effective way. And it's excruciating for people at first. It's excruciating because if somebody spoke to them in that way, it would be embarrassing. But by not doing it, you're making your team fill in the gaps, and they're not going to fill it in the way that you want. And so you've likely been very frustrated with your team. So the leadership
Yeah,
system shows you how to effectively communicate with your team in a way that they are empowered, they're taking action, and your vision is becoming a reality.
and so what you're saying is, of course, the curse of the expert, because you've got all of this knowledge and you just assume that everybody else has it or gets it as well when they
Yes.
don't. And so you feel like you've got to, quote unquote, dumb it down so that you can tell it to them. And it feels like then you're speaking down to your people.
Yes.
When really what you want to do is be speaking up to them.
Yeah.
To acknowledge, their strengths, what they are doing within the organization and so forth, their ambitions, and then be there to support them by speaking up to them.
Yes.
And in doing so, sharing your ideas in a way that they can get without feeling like you're being condescending,
Yes.
condescending to them.
Like I'm immediately thinking of John. He has a mortgage consultancy company out of New York. He reached out to me and was like, I really need your help. He had major conflict with his business partner and he was feeling like his team was not performing. I took him through the leadership system and within months they were performing. And his business partner specifically, they had been having meetings that just ended up as a fight for 18 months and there wasn't an agreement on their partnership. And they were just kind of kicking the can down the road. And within 3 weeks after going through this process, they had a verbal and written agreement. And his business partner was finally doing the things he'd been trying to tell his business partner to do, but he was doing it on his own initiative. So like the gap between that and where he had been was so frustrating to John. And all it took was understanding this system, and suddenly his partner was performing, and so was his team. So he could focus on developing a new product, which is what he'd been trying to do.
Which is what he wanted to do all along. So your vital framework, this all came out of your experience?
Yes.
Growing Pudge, running Pudge, selling Pudge, and saying,
100%.
Okay, from everything I learned, everything you got dragged through from the ditches and the valleys to the peaks and the glory of it all, this is what you've learned and you're teaching others. How long of a program is it with working with you?
I mean, there's multiple phases. The first phase is 90 days. The next phase is about 6 months. I'll tell you, Park, a lot of people stick around because it works and they really like having this support. Because once I help them kind of build the initial foundation, then together we can go really fast and it just becomes fun and easy. And, sometimes they want me to train team members. Sometimes they want me to meet with their operator. And it's just about this partnership and building your vision.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like living in Puerto Rico that most of your work is done online, virtually.
Yeah. Almost all of my client sessions are on Zoom.
Yeah. Isn't that a beautiful thing that actually came out of COVID?
It's so
the fact
freeing.
that we all got relegated to the virtual world and now it's so accepted.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm up here in Northern Arizona, as you know, and the vast majority of my work comes right out of here. Thank God Elon Musk could put Starlink together because I've got faster internet here than I've got in Phoenix. So this is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the interesting thing about the Vital Framework is it works it doesn't matter what your product or service is. I designed this focusing on the fundamentals and first principles. And so what's cool is I can take this framework and I can apply it to my client who has a hard money lending business. I can apply it to my client who has a plastic surgery office and is now expanding into weight loss. I can apply it to clients who are coaching and consulting. I can apply it to people who have online marketing or courses and programs. Like it applies to everybody.
What I think about when you're saying that across the board is the singular one-word theme I'm hearing from you about you and your vital framework is ambition. Is that you work to help, make sure that ambition is heading towards a North Star on the right path with the right team backed by the right values, and teaching the leadership skills so that that ambition doesn't destroy you or your family, which it can. Ambition is a very positive word, right? It's like, he's very ambitious, she's very ambitious, but ambition, if not directed in the right direction, can actually absolutely destroy you.
100%. Yeah. And it will if you're not taking these other things into consideration. And that's what design taught me, is actually constraints can lead you to brilliant innovation, but you have to acknowledge the constraints. And what I was doing early on is I wasn't acknowledging my constraints. And so I was taking kind of the path of least resistance to that solution. And it included a lot of destruction. And if you just expand the constraints a little bit and actually acknowledge the truth of reality and take that into consideration, you can be led to an innovation that you were blind to previously.
Yeah. It's interesting how your design background and your first big company, Pooge, and the success you had with that, the values that drove that of being, a better, happier, more connected parent to that little child, essentially are the same foundation for what you're doing now with your Vital Framework. But now you're, instead of putting babies in bathtubs, you're putting leadership in value-driven bathtubs to help them really figure out how to direct their ambition in positive ways.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you've got a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. It's called What's Working Now. And that name stems from the idea that truth is always true. It's the application that shifts and changes. So I'm really curious about what are the underlying principles, and then what is the application of that principle.
And you can find it anywhere podcasts are being published out there?
We're all over the place. We've been doing it for 6 years now. And I love podcasting. I love getting to meet incredible people like you, Park. I love hearing from listeners. So if you listen to an episode, send me a DM on Instagram, because you can't get DMs on podcasts. I'm Katie.live. And go listen. Recently, we're launching a series called Entrepreneur's Edge. And I actually talk a lot about alignment and how can you as an entrepreneur really get and maintain an edge over your competition.
Yeah. And it sounds like a book might be on the horizon. You've got so much to share.
If I had a book, what would you want to be in it, Park?
Well, I would like to have a book on the 5 steps through your Vital Framework, all backed up with stories that are showing your points of view, your action steps in action, and the pros and cons, the highs and lows of, if you do this, you can achieve this. If you don't do this, here's the downside of it. Yeah. That's what I'd love to read.
I love it. It's on the horizon.
So we'll see. We'll have you here next year promoting your new book. But this is a perfect timing for this show because, we're leading in to 2025 and people do a lot of, soul searching, self-assessment, and like, okay, what am I going to do different? I ate a lot of French fries in 2024. I'm going to be more deliberate and disciplined in 2025. What are the tools I need to do that? Sounds like you've got a great framework for them.
Yeah. It's working. It's worked for me and it's working for my clients. And it's really powerful.
Where can people learn more about you and it?
I'm really active on Instagram, katie.live. You can go to now.katierichandson.com/case study. And you can go learn about other entrepreneurs who were frustrated with their business or frustrated with the slow growth of their company and needed to understand how to leverage their team, how to lead them, how to put forth a clear vision and be inspired. And then if you feel so compelled, you can fill out an application to potentially become a client.
We'll put that link in the show notes too. But thank you so much, Katie, for coming to us all the way from Puerto Rico. It's wonderful to have you here. And thanks so much for sharing your Vital Framework.
Thank you, Park. It's been a pleasure. It's really awesome.
Thanks for listening to and sharing this edition of The Business of Story. Hey, if you do me a huge favor, I'd appreciate it. Jump over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. If you like what you've been hearing, please give me that 5-star. If you don't like what you're hearing, go over there and give me a 1-star and tell me why. Either way, you're going to help me get found in the loud, cacophonous world we all compete in. Also want to remind you, if you want to be a part of that beta test team for our new story cycle system analyst, that again takes my 20 years of experience building brand story strategy using the story cycle system, which typically takes 4 to 6 to 8 months for brands to actually enact and put to work, and be able to do it for your own business in just under 2 hours, then shoot me a note, park@businessofstory.com. And if you've got some training on the horizon for you and your team and your friends and family, whomever, and you want to help some people excel through the stories you tell, shoot me a note. I would love to work with you either in person or through our virtual training. And of course, you've got the ABTs of Storytelling online micro training course that you can access at any time. So check it out. Hey, big shout out to Caden Howell for producing our show, Darius Holbert for writing our music, and Marissa Hill for your ongoing marketing commitment and community development. And I hope you will all join us next Monday when renowned workplace culture consultant and co-author of the new book, Culture Change Made Easy, Jamie Notter, will show you how to use story to embrace, manage, and instigate cultural change for the good of everyone in your organization. Until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.